Quickly before the video begins, if you'd like to earn yourself this rather nice golden relief emblem, then you can do so by gifting a sub to my Twitch channel while I'm live at twitch.tv/llama2. Now, back to the video. Right, hello guys, and welcome back to my third build for the Edge of Fate expansion. And Warlocks, today is finally your turn, and I hope you'll excuse the delay as myself and my team have had an insanely busy weekend, what with the day 1 raid happening and all the content that came along with it. But I have not been idle, and today I have prepared for you what I believe is the strongest Solar Warlock build in the Edge of Fate, including a comprehensive guide to optimal stats, beneficial set bonuses, and a perfectly tailored subclass configuration and weapons. And if you enjoy this type of content, then a like and subscribe is greatly appreciated, as it really helps to support the channel. So without further ado, let's get into it. The core piece of today's build is the newly buffed and reworked Starfire Protocol exotic chest piece, and here's why. In the Edge of Fate, Starfire Protocol received a pretty major change where Bungie made it so radiant damage counts for the purposes of the perk, meaning you are no longer restricted to having to stand within your empowering rift to gain grenade energy from kills. Now, being radiant is all that you need, and as long as you have the buff active, each kill will successfully grant you a pretty hefty chunk of grenade energy back. Not only that, Starfire Protocol also grants you grenade energy from direct damage and not just kills. And this component was also buffed in the Edge of Fate, where now you gain upwards of 5% grenade energy per damage instance, up from the previous 2.5%. And I say upwards because depending on your grenade stat, the amount of energy you get back can massively change. Taking a look here, with 17 grenade stats, it takes roughly 6 or 7 kills to fully recharge my grenade, but with over 100 grenade stats, it only takes 3 kills, which is a huge difference, and as such, we will be investing heavily into this stat going forward. And that's also on top of the fact that at higher grenade stats above 100, your fusion grenades will be dealing up to a maximum 65% increased damage, but more on this later. Just know that the grenade stat is very important when it comes to fully optimizing this build. Furthermore, Starfire Protocol also has a hidden bonus not stated anywhere in the perk description, where for simply having it equipped, your fusion grenades passively recharge 20% faster. Just something I thought you should know. After that, all that needs doing is mixing in some powerful artifact perks, appropriate weapon choices, along with smart decisions on armor mods, and we're going to have ourselves a build that's truly a force to be reckoned with. So let's begin with our subclass configuration. Depending on the activity you're doing, your super of choice could very well change based on the needs of your teammates, but for the most part, if you're just chilling doing the leveling grind, then I highly recommend going with the Song of Flame super, as it's excellent for boss damage, ad clear, and survivability. After that, we're taking Phoenix Dive because, as I mentioned in the beginning, we no longer need Empowering Rift for Starfire to work, and Phoenix Dive is just a much better class ability, especially when it comes to aspect synergy. For the melee, we're taking Incinerator Snap, as it's by far the best melee option for Solar Warlock, because if all the bolts manage to hit a single target, it will cause an ignition. And then finally, we of course want the Fusion Grenade. Aspects wise, the first one we're taking is Touch of Flame. This aspect is simply going to make it so our fusion grenades explode twice, and in doing so, almost doubling the damage of each grenade thrown, because by default, a non-Touch of Flame fusion deals 744 damage, but with Touch of Flame, this now goes to 1436, an effective 93% overall damage increase. After that, our second aspect is going to be Helion, which is simply going to act as an extra damage support device that will occasionally trigger ignitions, and because we're using Phoenix Dive, we should be getting this ability back fairly frequently. And further to that, Starfire also has a secondary perk where getting a kill with your fusion grenade grants 100% fixed class ability energy, meaning that one fusion kill is all you need to fully refund your Phoenix Dive and thus your Helion. And weirdly, this refund is unique in that it doesn't scale with the corresponding stat, since even at 29 class, I still get my full class ability back. And given that Hunter requires 70 melee in order for their melee to be fully refunded by Gambler's Dodge, it doesn't make a ton of sense that Starfire just gives you your full class back regardless of stat investment, but I'm not one to complain. As far as your fragments are concerned, the first one we're taking is Ember of Torches. This fragment is simply going to make it so powered melee hits make you and nearby allies radiant for 8 seconds, which by the way is a 20% weapon damage buff. Next, we're taking Ember of Searing. This fragment states that defeating scorched targets grants melee energy and creates a fire sprite, which is just going to act as a nice way of getting some of our melee energy back when getting kills with fusion grenades, because they do apply scorch. And the fire sprite is nice too, since at 100 grenade stats, a fire sprite does give back a decent chunk of grenade energy, so don't underestimate them. After that, we have Ember of Empyrean, the classic solar build staple that's simply going to make it so solar defeats from any source extend the duration of radiant and restoration effects applied to you. And then finally, our last fragment is going to be Ember of Mercy. Ember of Mercy is going to make it so collecting a fire sprite grants a short amount of restoration, which is going to act as the main way this build dips into restoration. And given how frequently we're going to be spawning fire sprites, we should be having pretty good uptime on it. That about does it for our subclass makeup, so now let's dive a little deeper into our stat distribution. Like I mentioned earlier, having at least 100 grenade is crucial for this build as it's going to maximize the grenade energy returns from all sources, be it fire sprites, starfire, armor perks, etc. And if you can, I would highly encourage that you exceed 100 and get as close to 140/150 as you can, because in doing so, we're now dipping into the increased grenade damage territory. Take my distribution for example. I have 130 grenade at base and 2 grenade fonts on my gloves, effectively putting me at 170 grenade whenever I'm holding armor charge, which brings up the previous fusion grenade damage of 1436 to a really nice 2080, an overall 45% damage increase, and that's for every grenade every time. Following that, I find it's quite nice to have at least 70 melee so the energy returns from Ember of Searing are noticeable enough, leading to more potential radiant uptime. Then I have 50 super, which again is bolstered by 2 super fonts, which effectively raises it to 90 when armor charge is factored in. But if your armor is better than mine, you won't need as much investment into fonts. So to summarize, I would go for 150 grenade, 70 melee, and at least 70 super, with the rest being your choice as they aren't as important as the first 3 I listed. Before we continue, I'd encourage you to join my Discord server. We have a super awesome community there and we'd honestly love to have you. Plus, if you enter the code word FUSION into the code words channel today, you'll gain exclusive access to a behind the scenes channel where you can be involved in the making of these videos. Link is in the description. Moving on to the weapons and artifact section, this is where things really start to kick up a notch, and we'll start with the artifact first. The first crucial mod we're taking is Fever and Chill in column 3. This perk states that rapid precision hits with solar weapons grant radiant, which is true. It does take exactly 4 headshots with Sunshot to trigger 10 seconds of radiant, but the part it doesn't really tell you is that multi-kills also count for this perk, taking only 3 rapid kills that don't involve any precision damage to also provide 10 seconds of radiant. So this perk is here in the event you don't have any melee charge ready and need some quick access to radiant to get Starfire rolling. Staying in column 3, the next important perk we're taking is Refresh Threads. This one states that picking up an elemental pickup matching your subclass element grants energy to your least charged ability. So if you take this perk plus the grenade bonus you already get from fire sprites, you actually gain a fairly significant chunk of grenade energy from each fire sprite collected. In fact, at a glance, it looks like half. And yes, this is assuming you have both your class ability and melee available, which to be fair won't be all the time, but it's still useful to have this perk active regardless. Moving into column 4, we're taking Cauterized Darkness. This perk states that stasis or strand debuff non-boss combatants take increased solar damage from all sources, which granted is a bit of a shame that it doesn't work on bosses, but for any high priority mini boss like a champion or subjugator for example, this perk allows your fusions to deal an additional 30% damage provided they are affected by a darkness debuff, and the easiest way to apply one is through something like a chill clip weapon like Tinashe's Mastery. After that, the last 2 important perks we need are Radiant Shrapnel and Shield Crush in column 5. Radiant Shrapnel is simply going to make it so whenever you are radiant, dealing weapon damage will occasionally spawn in seeking solar projectiles that deal damage and scorch on impact. So it's just a little bit of extra add clear power. Then Shield Crush will make it so whenever you are radiant, your grenades recharge 25% faster and deal 25% more damage. So if you factor in Touch of Flame, 200 grenade stat, Cauterized Darkness, and Shield Crush, your fusion grenades are now dealing over 418% increased damage over base, which at least in my view is pretty spectacular. Weapons wise, you're going to need a weapon in your kinetic slot which provides easy access to a darkness debuff such as Tinashe's Mastery with Chill Clip or the brand new Mint Retrograde Rocket Pulse with Slice, with my preference being Mint Retrograde since it's such a beast of a weapon, but Tinashe's is also fine. And then after that, I tested a variety of solar exotic primaries like Tommy's Matchbook, Devil's Ruin, and Hierarchy of Needs, but ultimately landed on Sunshot as the best feeling weapon to pair with this build. You really can't beat the classics. A single chain explosion from Sunshot is enough to immediately trigger the Radiant from Fever and Chill, and in general, it's just a really solid weapon, even in high-level content. So, now let's move on to the final section, which involves optimal set bonuses and armor mods. Out of all the obtainable armor sets that feature set bonuses in the Edge of Fate, there is truly just one that stands out the most when it comes to supporting this build, that being the Collective Psyche set from the Desert Perpetual raid, specifically for the 4-piece bonus, because it reads, Suspend, Unravel, and Sever effects applied to targets, and Radiant and Restoration effects applied to you have increased duration. And sadly, I don't have any raid armor on my Warlock yet, but I do have 4 pieces on my Titan, and to best showcase the effect, by default, Ember of Torches grants 8 seconds of Radiant on melee hit, but with the 4-piece set, this goes all the way to 12 seconds, a staggering 50% increase. And then with Sever, by default, it lasts for 10 seconds, but again, with the 4-piece bonus, this now becomes 15 seconds, again a 50% increase. So given that this build relies pretty heavily on radiant uptime and dips into restoration as its main health sustain factor, having the option to have them both last 50% longer for no effort at all is incredibly valuable. Same goes for the Sever component as well. Now granted, it does require doing quite possibly one of the hardest raids Bungie have ever made, but it really is worth the struggle, I promise. Finishing up with the armor mods, for the helmet we're taking 2 super fonts to increase our super stat by 40 points whenever we're holding armor charge, but if your super stat is any better than mine, you can replace one of these fonts for an Ashes to Assets. Then Solar Siphon so Sunshot can make orbs on double kills. For the gloves, we are also taking 2 grenade fonts to increase our grenade stat by an additional 40 points, then also 1 copy of Firepower so that fusion grenade kills are able to spawn orbs. Chest piece, like always, is just general resist mods. Then for the boots, we have stacks on stacks so that each orb collected grants 2 stacks of armor charge, then Innovation and Strand Scavenger to keep our Mint Retrograde topped up. Finally, for the class item, we have 1 copy of Time Dilation to make our stat fonts last longer, Reaper, and Powerful Attraction. As far as the optimal gameplay loop is concerned, your aim should be to begin an engagement by using your melee to activate Radiant as soon as possible, and from there on, spam your fusion grenades as soon as they're available, making sure to be scoring plenty of weapon kills while doing so to bolster the recharge rate of them. And do remember to be popping your Phoenix Dive also, since you'll want to be maintaining as much uptime on Helion as you possibly can. As always, there will be a dim link in the description for you to copy the build hassle-free, and the fashion I used for today's build can be visible on screen now if you fancy copying that too. Before I go, I do want to mention that when you're watching this, I'm most likely going to be live on my Twitch doing a full run of the Desert Perpetual with all 5 feats active, including contest mode. So if you want a fun watch, then do come say hi at twitch.tv/llama2. We're giving away some neat looking emblems too, so do make sure to stop by. I'll see you there. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's build, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now, dear viewer.